Hi everyone, I'm Ali GREYMOND. Today I'm continuing to answer questions about OCD recovery. These are questions that you asked below my Ask a Question About OCD video. First question is emotional numbness normal when recovering from OCD? I could imagine killing somebody and don't fear it. So, first of all, it is normal. Second of all, anybody can imagine anything, 50,000 thoughts a day. You have to choose to disregard. So, yes, you can imagine, yes, it could feel very real that you could actually go through and do something like that. Choose to disregard. Yep, nice try, OCD, another thought, moving forward. That's how you have to treat it. Not digging into it, not analyzing, well, how do I feel about this? Well, how do I feel about that? Asking other people how they would feel. Don't do any of it. Just choose to disregard. The thought has to do with this. I'm disregarding it. Next question is, hello, Ali. What is your opinion about a low glutamate diet? It seems to have recent scientific research and it is difficult to find information. Maybe some of your patients have talked about it. Thank you. So I looked into it. I actually didn't hear anything about it. So after I saw your question, I looked into it. And, the research is interesting. I do advise people to take a look at it. My opinion on diets as it relates to OCD recovery is this: everything can affect brain chemistry because brain is obviously part of the body, so everything to some extent will affect it, and even going beyond diets, your daily habits will affect it, sleep will affect it, all kinds of things can affect and do affect neurotransmitters. Okay. So sticking to the most natural foods, sticking to foods that have no or very little additives, is the best idea. And for everybody, that looks slightly different in terms of their specific diet preference and so on. But what you have to do is stick to things that are natural. Don't go for things that are heavily processed because, to be honest, nobody can really tell you what kind of side effects and or what kind of effects heavily processed foods, and that I include restaurant foods in that because we don't know what people what restaurants really put into it. What kind of effect that really has, because a lot of this is new and we're kind of the first, what my generation is the first generation probably that was eating these foods heavily, you know um, never mind even the younger generation right now, right, that they're eating them en masse, right? So it's hard to know what the side effects are going to be and how much it really affects the neurotransmitters. So as long as you're sticking to the most natural part of the diet, I think that that's key. With OCD, you can start to really obsess about the diet as an issue, so you have to be careful of that as well. Anything that's heavily processed, and I've talked before about gluten, and I do have a lot of clients coming back to me saying they feel a lot better. They're not, it doesn't magically make you recovered from OCD, but they do see a result with going gluten free, right? It's not a make or break, but it's another piece of the puzzle, right? That if we're, doing everything and reducing stress here, doing a lot of ERP work, cutting out processed foods, cutting out gluten or reducing gluten consumption, you know all of these things, they play a part, and for some people gluten is a huge factor. For some people it doesn't make any difference. I've seen both sides of that coin, right? For some people glutamate can be a big thing, and for some people not, right? So you kind of have to play around with it and see what works for you, what makes you feel better. But the cornerstone of everything is ERP. you know you cannot recover from OCD only doing vitamins. I've never seen it, or only vitamins, or like dietary related changes, let's put it that way. I have never ever seen it in the 10 years that I've been doing this. It's impossible. And I talk to people all around the world, vastly different diets, vastly different lifestyles. I don't see it, so as a savior, you can't rely on that, as an aid, try it and see what works for you. I do find the research very interesting. Thank you so much, actually, for bringing it to my attention. Next question is, hi Ali, I have been doing ERP for OCD with your videos for a few months, and now I feel that I have been doing progress. Sometimes I get stuck on some compulsion, but my main problem is that when I'm doing something that used to trigger a lot of compulsions and was really time consuming, and if now I'm not doing the same thing, I'm realized that I'm feeling good and I don't get to need to do the compulsion. I get anxious because I feel that something bad might happen because my life gets so much easier without the compulsions. How should I react to this thought? Okay, so you want to say, well, yeah, okay, clearly everything bad is going to happen. Nice try, OCD, choosing to disregard. So before, I don't know what your OCD was before, like what thoughts you had before, but what happened really, right? Thought came in, you said, nice try, I'm disregarding. Thought went away. Now it switched to, I have no thoughts, what if something bad happens? Nice try, choosing to not pay attention. So it's the same process, it's just your theme switched slightly. So you just have to look at it that, nah, that's not really any different. Next question is, hi Ali, I'm a teacher and my obsession is around classroom management and researching classroom management practices. The problem is I am actually struggling with this in my day-to-day life as a teacher. I recognize that my desire to read more books, articles, videos about classroom management is probably my compulsion. I've seen hundreds at this point. But I also genuinely need to improve in this area for my career. It seems like a catch-22. I know it's my OCD that's preventing me from improving. However, how can I practically deal with student behaviors without doing some planning? My therapist says my fear is imperfection and I have to accept being imperfect. I think she is right. I actually completely agree. She is right. If you're managing students, there is no perfection. Don't even expect it. Never going to happen. I also feel far less than perfect, and basically I feel like a failure. So that's what you have to address. How you feel has no connection to what actual situation is. Students can be unmanageable. That's what it is. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. So whenever you have this negative self-talk, oh, I didn't do good, or I could have done better, or I need to figure this out, choosing not to do this. So with people with OCD, I do see a lot of self-esteem issues, and they're related to OCD because with OCD you're beat down all the time. So after a while, you start to really think badly of yourself. And that's a huge factor. And actually, people with OCD also tend to be very sensitive people. And for a sensitive person, it's a lot easier to have bad self-esteem than for somebody who's not sensitive, right? So all of these things kind of happen as a group. But just like you're disregarding OCD thoughts, which is in your case perfection, in many people's cases perfection aspects, right? So just like you're disregarding, nope, this is perfection, I'm not doing this, I'm not watching this video, yep, they're all the not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it's not perfect, who cares, moving on. Accepting that it's not going to be perfect all the time and not blaming yourself for it. And when you have this negative self-talk that comes up that you're a failure, then you're disregarding that, because that's happening on autopilot as well. So you're disregarding that the same way that you're disregarding the thoughts about perfection. You don't need to put that pressure on yourself to always be perfect, to never do the wrong thing, to never take a misstep. That doesn't make you a failure. We all are not perfect. That's normal. That's okay. You don't have to put yourself to that standard all the time. And it's work, right? Just like OCD recovery is work. In the same way, regaining or gaining or regaining self-esteem, depending on the situation, right? Some people have had bad self-esteem for basically all their lives, and they actually have to gain it for the first time. And self-esteem comes from the fact that you feel like you are good already. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to attain a certain standard and then you will be good, and until you attain that standard, then you know what I mean, like you don't view yourself as worthy until you attain that standard. You can't allow yourself to get into that self-talk, and it's continuously. So the brain sends it to you right now on autopilot, and you're saying, no, I am good, I'm not buying this. And from the position of power, you're choosing to move on. and it's daily work. So you need to do ERP for it. So when the thought comes in, that's the exposure. So the thought about the students, or the thought about you specifically as a person, how do you view yourself, right? So both of those things are exposures, and you need to do response prevention, not getting into the dialogue, not getting into the negative thinking, choosing not to, even though right now you may feel differently, but that feeling is based on the old programming, which is what we're working on changing. Next question is, this is a question that I addressed in the first video, but I didn't have enough information, so I asked to get more information. So the question is, hey Ali, thank you very much for answering my question. Basically, it is an obsession about past mistake from a lot of years ago. It definitely follows my OCD theme, which is moral scrupulosity, but I know that this event really happened. It isn't a false memory. I never thought it was that bad until a few months ago when OCD appeared. Everybody said I'm blowing it out of proportions, but to me, it seems like it's something that only a bad person would do. It's making me feel like I'm not a good person, like I'm a fraud. And if people knew about this event, they would abandon me. I actually confessed about it to my family some time ago, and I felt a bit better when they said it's not a big deal, but now it is back again. I think I haven't confessed good enough. I feel guilt and shame, and I feel like I don't deserve love or happiness. Is there any kind of ERP for this type of OCD? Thank you. First of all, this is a very, 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 very common type of OCD. I think other people who are listening to me say this, they're nodding, because yes, most people with OCD experience some level of this. And it has all of the classic symptoms: the confessing, the reconfessing, the analyzing, the going back to the past. The list goes on and on. So you have to look at it that this is classic, and everybody's exactly right. You're making something out of nothing. It's basically saying that, okay, something happened, again, just like the previous question, the perfection aspect. Now I'm a bad person because I did something in the past that was not perfect. We're all human. We all make mistakes. If everybody around you tells you it's not a big deal, believe them and choose to move on. Even though your feelings right now are telling you otherwise, it doesn't matter. Make a choice to move on, even though you feel uncomfortable, even though you feel uncertain. I promise you, as you start to really push through on the reaction, because the thought itself in this situation is the exposure. You need to do response prevention. Response prevention meaning not analyzing the thought, not analyzing whether you need to confess, not analyzing whether you need to try to figure it out, choosing not to do that day after day after day. You will see that this thought will start to dissipate, and then you will start to see it the way everybody else sees it, because that's already happened, based on what you're saying. And if it didn't, then it will, right? That at some point you let it go, but then it came back, and then you started to take it seriously when it came back. So you need to go back to how you were treating it before, which is disregarding. And if you weren't treating it before as disregarding enough, then you need to do that more now. But really push through on it. So the thought itself is the exposure, and you need to start actively doing response prevention. Next question is, hi Ali, my physical compulsions are really visible, like shaking things and pressing them as hard as I can, and many more stuff I do. I do it when the thought comes in to neutralize it. Is it OCD? How do I deal with this kind of compulsions? I'm scared of myself. Yes, this is OCD. So again, I'm surprised you even asked me if this is OCD. This is classic OCD. This is probably one of the most classic types of OCD. So you need to stop allowing yourself to do compulsions. And again, you might not be able to catch all of them, but whenever you catch yourself, you need to choose to stop, because that's how you reprogram your brain that, no, can't do this is OCD, and start with the easiest ones and then work up to the more scarier ones. You can do this just little by little, like 5% less a day, meaning every time the situation comes up where you are doing a physical compulsion, evaluate in your mind, do I really need to do this, or can I hold off and choose not to do it? And try to choose not to. But you have to push, because right now, every time you're doing a compulsion, you are making OCD worse, without a doubt. So you're digging deeper and deeper into OCD, and those compulsions will grow in number very, very quickly if you keep going down this road. So you have to start standing up for yourself with OCD, and you have to start refusing at least some of it, increasing more each day. Even if it's 1% more increase, do something. Every day has to be a day where you either made a step forward or at least remain neutral, but you can't make every day you're just remaining neutral, right? Like not steps forward but not steps back either. That's fine some days, but you really have to push through and making steps forward. Otherwise it's just going to continue to increase until it goes to an unbelievable level. It's either you're choosing to do the work now or you're choosing to do the work when it's going to be really, really difficult. And either way you'll recover, but you're just going to make it a lot harder on yourself. Another question that I did not answer because I didn't have enough information. The question about homosexual OCD, because they said HOCD, and I wasn't sure if the person meant homosexual OCD or homo OCD. So, anyways, the question is homosexual OCD. What are some good ERP exercises for HOCD? Why it feels like that other guys are looking good. Does that make me gay? Every time I see a good looking guy, I get anxiety and some mixed unwanted thoughts. So you have to look at it that this is an OCD thought. It's giving you anxiety. It follows the same kind of, obsessive nature. So it's OCD choosing to move on. You know, it's OCD I'm disregarding. And when you're in that situation, the fears that come up, that's the exposure, and you need to do response prevention, meaning choosing not to respond with fear. You're looking at it, oh, whatever, OCD thought, whatever, who cares? So 50,000 thoughts a day, you're just watching thoughts flow through your mind, without paying attention. Next question is, I have been following your instruction to the dot, and I'm feeling great after a month. That's great. See, this is what I'm saying to you guys. It really works. You just have to push through. My overall anxiety, I think, is 3 or 4 out of 10. So I could not thank you enough. I'm happy to help. It's just doing the work. You're the one doing it. My question is, how do I get over OCD or fear of failing to carry out a conversation with a girl in general? I used to be excellent in talking, but since my OCD has attacked that part of me, I'm not as confident as I used to be. Do I simply disregard? Yeah, just simply disregard and just continue the conversation the best you can, with no fear regarding those negative thoughts. Yeah, exactly. Also, do I have to wait until my overall OCD and anxiety comes down to 1 out of 10? I have other themes as well, and then start talking to a girl I'm attracted to again? No, start talking now. Because the more you wait, the more you're creating a panic out of it, a thing out of it. There's nothing here. It's just talking, right? So some days we talk better, some days we talk a little bit worse. I talk all day with clients. Some days are better, some days are worse. That's normal, that's natural. So you have to look at it that the more you're trying to achieve, again, do you guys see a pattern here? Question after question after question, achieving perfection. Whenever you feel in any area of your life that you're trying to achieve perfection, chances are, since you already have OCD, this is part of that OCD. How do I tackle this? Because if I do exposures by talking to a girl and then they leave because I'm boring, then my OCD will become worse, isn't it? Because my fear came true. I'm confused. I would really appreciate any advice. Thank you. So, first of all, if they find you boring just because you're not as good at having keeping up with the conversation, then they're probably already not that interested, or they're probably not the right person for you in to begin with, if that's how quick they are to leave. That's just my personal opinion. You can take it or leave it. But you do need to do practice, and to do exposure response prevention, you have to have exposures, and exposures is conversations. So you need to put yourself in those situations. And again, not having a perfect conversation, it is what it is. And the more you actually allow yourself not to have a perfect conversation, the better you will get at it. It's just putting yourself in the situation and refusing reaction. But you do have to do that. Next question is, Ali, I always watch your videos because it's giving me motivation and supports to beat OCD, and I feel better after watching the video. Is it considered a compulsion or reassurance? I mean, there is level of support and then there's a level of compulsion. So if you watch it, say once or once in the, sometimes like I hear people say like I'll watch it once in the morning and once say in the afternoon or evening to get me back, centered and on track and fighting. That's fine. But if you're watching it on repeat over and over again, that sounds more like a compulsion to me. But in some extreme cases, sometimes it helps because it keeps the person from doing the compulsion, not in the way of the video being like a reassurance, but in the way of no, I have to stay on track, but there is still a compulsive element to it. So if you find that it's more than, I would say, I would say twice a day would probably be the max. Anything beyond that, I think it sounds like a compulsion, to be honest. And for pure harm OCD, worry to harm our family, we should face them as normal, or we need to be leaving them to make sure they will be okay without me. Thank you. So this is an OCD thought. You definitely don't need to leave your family. You need to face them as much as possible. You will see nothing bad happens, and everything is going to be okay. You need to make that choice because that's what OCD is, right? It tries to scare you into avoiding, into getting reassurance, into confessing, all these things, right? You can't allow yourself to do that because it never ends. These are all the questions for today. I do have a lot more questions. If I haven't answered yours, I will answer it. Just there's just a lot. I think there's over 100 questions, so I'm getting through them as I can. If something new came up for you and you would like to elaborate, please leave it below your question so I will see your original question and then additional comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. I do daily videos about all things OCD. If you would like to do the recovery program with me, all the information is on youhaveocd.com. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.